Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-7122. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-7122 is to be stored in a secure safe inside a standard containment room. Said room is to have 2 armed guards posted outside of it and is only able to be accessible by level 3 staff or higher. Any access to SCP-7122's containment room is to be reported to the site director immediately, who can initiate a lockdown if deemed necessary. It is thus recommended that the director be informed before accessing SCP-7122's containment room. As SCP-7122 is an inanimate object that needs to be handled for anomalous effects to occur, there is no threat of it breaching containment by itself. However, the Department of Intelligence has assessed that there is a possibility that the item may be an object of interest for hostile groups of interest. In case of a containment breach, the entire wing of Site-717 containing SCP-7122 is to initiate a lockdown, with all light as well as internet and intranet access being cut off immediately in order to prohibit utilization of SCP-7122's anomalous effects. Foundation staff within the compromised area are to be advised not to use any source of light for the entire duration of the lockdown. The only personnel allowed to access the locked-down section of Site-717 in case of a containment breach is the on-site tactical response team. Upon recontainment, all electronic devices capable of storing digital data and media, as well as SCP-7122, are to be investigated for any instances of .NAO files. Only after all results have turned out negative, personnel are to be released from lockdown, and both internet and intranet access is to be turned back on. Description: SCP-7122 is a Nikon brand D3500 DSLR camera, serial number with a standard 18 to 55mm kit lens. SCP-7122's anomalous effects manifest when it is used to photograph a person. Upon taking a picture, an image file in the format .ANO is created. Said files can be viewed without any special software on all common media devices. Going to the metadata will seemingly reveal nothing out of the ordinary. However, instead of displaying information about the file such as file name or the time, date, and location of its creation, such information will instead be displayed about the subject depicted in the photograph. Additionally, a field can be found at the bottom of the window saying, "Further Properties." Investigation of these properties will open up a separate window with a sporadically expanding, seemingly nonsensical, and random array of numbers and letters. It is theorized that the extent of these properties directly correlates to the subject's age and experiences. Although most of the .ANO files ranges from 175 kilobytes to 3.5 megabytes, the average amount of data found within the Further Properties section is estimated to be around 1 petabyte. All Foundation efforts to decode said data have so far proven unsuccessful. Further anomalous effects have become apparent when the files are altered or deleted. When a .ANO file is inserted into video editing software and a spoken audio track is combined with said file, the subject in the photograph will initiate motion matching the spoken tracks, while the recorded voice will instantly change as well to match the voice of the depicted subject. However, tests have shown that the person in the photo is the only one affected by this, meaning that the rest of the picture will not initiate any sort of movement. Deletion of a .NAO file will result in the immediate termination of the subject in the picture. Tests have shown that this effect only applies to the pictured person, even in crowd scenarios. If no specific subject exists in such a picture, no anomalous effects will manifest. The Foundation has not yet been able to determine the medical cause of death of the test subjects. SCP-7122's effects also apply to various animals, see test logs, and can be avoided by creating a copy of the original NAO file in advance. Deleting the metadata of a .NAO file will not result in the subject's death. However, the subject will become unresponsive and cease almost all motor functions in a catatonic state. Tests have shown that subjects affected by this are not incapable of actions like walking, but rather simply do not do so for most of the time. Discovery. SCP-7122 came to the Foundation's attention after a sudden rise of unexplained deaths and reported cases of anonymous blackmail in Gustavsberg, Sweden, and the surrounding area. The SCP Foundation dispatched 2 local field agents to investigate the situation. In cooperation with Swedish law enforcement agencies, Agent Roland Jansen and Agent Carl Berg subsequently managed to deduce that the cases were linked to Jens Eklund, a local amateur photographer and videographer and drug addict. Agents Jansen and Berg were ordered to investigate the property under the guise of an electrical inspection following a short unrelated blackout in Gustavsberg. After they were able to determine that the camera was the object of interest, it was given the official designation of SCP-7122, and a tactical response team was dispatched to recover the item under the pretext of a drug raid. Jens Eklund was fatally wounded during said raid after using SCP-7122 to kill 2 TAC rep operators. Test logs. Test 7122-01. Subject D9669. Description and results. Subject was photographed using SCP-7122. Photograph was deleted. D9669 died on the spot. Test 7122-02. Subject D9671. Description and results. Subject was photographed in absolute darkness using SCP-7122. Photograph was deleted. No change noted on subject. Test 7122-03. Subject D9671. Descriptions and results. Subject was photographed in absolute darkness using SCP-7122 while being lit by an infrared flashlight. Photograph was deleted. D9671 died on the spot. Test 7122-04. Subject D9672. Description and results. Subject was photographed using SCP-7122. External copy of .ano file was created. Original file deleted. No change noted on subject. Test 7122-05. Subjects D9672, D7673, D9874, and D9238. Description and results. Subjects were told to move around the room and make casual conversation. The entire group was photographed in a wide angle using SCP-7122. No subject was photographed individually. Photograph was then deleted. No change noted on either subject. Test 7122-06. Subject D9672. Description and results. Copy of D9672's ANO file was inserted into video editing software. The file began to visually mimic spoken audio track. No change noted on subject. Test 7122-07. Subject D9672. Description and results. Copy of D9672's ANO file was inserted into video editing software. File began to visually mimic spoken parts of inserted music tracks. No change noted on subject. Note: SCP-7122's ANO files mimic spoken audio tracks to an absolute perfect extent. Were it not for the unmoving background, it would be impossible to distinguish between an edited ANO file and an authentic video file. This anomalous effect could be of great use to the SCP Foundation. Test 7122-08. Subject D9672. Description and results. Edited metadata of D9672's ANO file to display a different day of creation. Error message displaying the words "Administrator permission required" appeared. Metadata reverted back to its original state after closing the error message. Foundation IT experts have not yet been able to bypass this effect. Test 7122-09. Subject D9672. Description and results. Deleted metadata of D9672's ANO file. D9672 instantly ceased nearly all motor functions and became unresponsive. fMRI and EEG scans showed next to no brain activity aside from vital areas. Subject was described by researchers to be in a catatonic state. Test 7122-10. Subjects D9672. Description and results. Subject brought to stand on 2 legs. Subject stood on 2 legs on its own. Subject was then pushed lightly. Subject was able to recover from push, likely via a form of muscle memory. Subject was pushed hard and subsequently fell face first to the floor, fracturing its nose and jaw. D9672 did not react to the likely resulting physical pain. Test 7122-11. Subject D9672. Description and results. Subject connected to EEG and fMRI scanners respectively, and subjected to a large dose of pain by having both femurs fractured independently through. Both EEG and fMRI scans showed next to no activity in the frontal lobe, the insular and cerebral cortex, all of which are largely important to human consciousness and emotional response to external stimuli. Upon the introduction of pain, N1 waves could be measured in the subject's brain, while there was almost a complete lack of N2 and P2 waves. As soon as the pain was inflicted, both the brain and the autonomous nervous system reacted on a physical level by releasing adrenaline and other hormones. Despite this, the scans of D9672's brain indicated that while it responded somewhat normally on a physical level, the emotional and conscious component of its perception of pain seemed to be non-existent. Note: in order to retain a professional climate, personnel are discouraged from referring to SCP-7122 as Soul Killer. As fitting as that description may be, personnel are also reminded that the Foundation does currently not know whether such a thing as a soul even exists. Test 7122-12. Subject: 1 male chimpanzee, pan-troglodytes. Description and results. Chimpanzee was photographed using SCP-7122. Photograph was deleted. Subject died on the spot. Test 7122-13. Subject: 1 female dog, golden retriever. Description and results. Dog was photographed using SCP-7122. Photograph was deleted. Subject died on the spot. Test 7122-14. Subject: 1 female house cat, Felis catus. Description and results. Cat was photographed using SCP-7122. Photograph was deleted. Subject died on the spot. Test 7122-15. Subject: 1 male African bullfrog, Pyxicephalus adspersus. Description and results. Frog was photographed using SCP-7122. Photograph was deleted. No change on subject. Test 7122-16. Subject: 1 female fire ant, Solenopsis. Description and results. Fire ant was photographed using SCP-7122. Photograph was deleted. No change noted on subject. Note: the anomalous effects of SCP-7122 mostly seem to be limited to living beings with a certain amount of intelligence and consciousness. However, the effects of deleting metadata vary largely among non-humanoid species. Test 7122-17. Approved by Site Director. Subjects: D7673 and D9874. Description and results. Both subjects were asked to fill out a questionnaire about themselves, their personality, as well as very specific moments and memories of their life only they knew about. D7673 and D9874 were then photographed individually using SCP-7122. D7673's metadata was copied and deleted afterwards, with the same being done to D9874. Both entered characteristic catatonic state as all previous subjects. The subjects then had their metadata swapped and quickly reverted back to a rather normal state. D7673 and D974 were subsequently asked to answer questions about information they had previously disclosed in the questionnaire. Evaluation of their answers showed that both now only knew about what the biologically other should be knowing, and claimed to be that same person. Both subjects went on to express extreme confusion and severe distress, stating they were in the wrong body. When asked about what happened after the deletion of their metadata, D7673 as well as D9874 became extremely agitated. and would enter a state of panic while profusely refusing to elaborate any further about the topic, with D9874 even becoming violent. Both subjects had to be sedated and were returned to their cells for the night. D7673 and D9874 went on to commit by that same night. Test 7122-18, approved by Site Director. Subjects D9672 and D7673. Description and results. D9672, who was still in a catatonic state and recovering from the physical effects of Test 7122-11, had his lost metadata replaced with that of the late D7673. D9672, from now on referred to as D7673, awoke soon after in great distress, showing signs of severe psychological trauma. D7673 behaved erratic and started screaming approximately half a minute after waking up. Subject stopped screaming after 5 minutes and died 10 minutes later from cardiac arrest, multiple organ failure, and severely damaged cerebral tissue, all suspected to have been caused, at least in some part, by extreme psychosomatic effects of the psychological trauma and/or the numerous transfers of metadata. Addendum 7122-01. As per order of Site Director Siegler, researchers are to refrain from performing experiments similar to Test 7122-11 unless necessary and approved by Director Siegler himself, or at least 2 Level 4 personnel. This rule will stay in effect until SCP-7122's anomalous effects are understood to a fuller extent. Addendum 7122-02. The Department of Intelligence has requested utilization of SCP-7122 by field agents in order to assure cooperation of influential non-Foundation individuals and to be able to terminate them or hostile person of interests if necessary. The department has also requested permission to set up several databases with ANO files of said individuals. Proposal is pending. The following document is classified at Security Clearance Level 4. Any unauthorized access is strictly forbidden and will result in disciplinary action. Project Balder. Access to Project Balder is restricted to Level 4 7122. By order of the O5 Council and the Department of Intelligence, personnel with lower clearance levels are prohibited from viewing this file. Following the discovery of SCP-7122 and its anomalous effects, the Department of Intelligence has proposed utilization of the camera for the purpose of applied influence and liquidation of persons of interest. This proposal has since been granted by the O5 Council, and the Department of Intelligence has been provided with personnel and funding for further experiments. After the results of Tests 7122-17 and SCP-7122-18 have suggested that SCP-7122 may be used to transfer a person's consciousness to a different person's body, including post-mortem, the O5 Council ordered enhanced testing of this effect for possible containment and security appliances. SCP-7122 has so far been used to capture 7 and terminate hostile persons of interest, while also having been used to influence important non-Foundation individuals. D-Class Testing. Tests 7122-17 and 7122-18 have shown severe side effects with the transfer of metadata. The following tests seek to find a way of negating these effects. Test DOI 7122-01. Subjects D5389 and D8376. Test description. Subjects were told to memorize one poem each beforehand as a way to determine if a transfer of consciousness via metadata had occurred. If successful, subjects were to be dosed with medical ketamine or similar euphoric drugs to reduce the level of trauma seen in Test 7122-17. Results. When asked, D-Class personnel recited each other's poem after their metadata had been swapped, thus proving that a transfer of consciousness had been successful. Subjects expressed discomfort about the situation, but not to such an extent as seen in D7673 and D9874. Still, the subjects became highly agitated and refused to elaborate when asked about what happened during the exchange of metadata. Conclusion: psychedelic drugs that induce euphoric states are feasible to reduce the apparent traumatic effects of a transfer of consciousness. However, they do not manage to completely negate said problems, and the long-term effects of regular drug administration point to this not being a permanent solution. Still, as no test subjects had occurred, the test was deemed a success. Test DOI 7122-02. Subjects D4381 and D1768. Test description: same as test DOI 7122-01, however, subjects were placed under general anesthesia for the transfer of consciousness and dosed with heavy opiates afterwards. Results: D-Class personnel confirmed a successful transfer had occurred by reciting the correct poem, just as the participants of test DOI 7122-01, D4381, and D1768 were uncomfortable with the situation. Unlike test DOI 7122-01, subjects stated they were unable to recall anything about the process of the exchange of metadata. Still, Foundation psychologists determined that the effects of a subconscious trauma were present, though not overly obvious. Conclusion: traumatic effects may be reduced further by artificially inducing a coma within subjects. The psychological trauma, however, is still a considerate factor that is to be eradicated if possible. Test DOI 7122-03. Subjects: Dr. Dominic Martin and D6578. Forward: Dr. Dominic Martin is a senior researcher of the Foundation, assigned to Project Balder with terminal lung cancer. Dr. Martin has volunteered as a test subject as a way to test possibilities of extending human life by transferring consciousness to another healthy body. Dr. Martin has declared he will not be placed under anesthesia and initially refused the administration of drugs in order to properly record and document what happens during the exchange of metadata. D6578 is a former Foundation employee of the administrative sector found guilty of espionage for a hostile group of interest. Test description: as the effects and risks of having one subject with and one without anesthesia are unknown, the transfer occurred without either subject being sedated. As per usual, both subjects memorized a different poem beforehand as a way of verifying a successful transfer of consciousness. Dr. Martin was then to report on what he could recall according to his own abilities. Results: D6578, who had purposely not been informed about the test's specific nature beforehand, awoke screaming in the body of Dr. Martin, while Dr. Martin, while visibly distressed, remained comparatively calm. D6578 was restrained and, after reciting the correct poem to confirm the transfer of consciousness, sedated. Dr. Martin requested the administration of anxiolytic medication. This request was granted. Additionally, Dr. Martin was also given a mild sedative for the following 2 days. On the 3rd day following the test, Dr. Martin resumed documentation on his journal, which he had started beforehand in order to document the events of the transfer of metadata from his own perspective. The contents of his journal can be found below. D6578 passed away from lung cancer 3 weeks after the completion of the test, but was transferred into a new living body for interrogation. After a lack of cooperation and the failure of conventional and advanced interrogation methods, D6578 was terminated via fatal shot to the head and transferred into another body 3 hours later, causing D6578 to give in and provide the Foundation with the requested information in exchange for the permanent deletion of his entire file. Journal of Dr. Dominic Martin for Project Balder, Test DOI 7122-03. Date 2510.
Hello, my name is Dr. Dominic Martin. I am 56 years old, born in Hamburg. I have volunteered to be a test subject in an experiment about the transfer of human consciousness into another body. Thinking about it, were this not the Foundation, I'd probably go to a psychiatric ward for simply saying this sentence. I should perhaps note that the primary goal of this journal is not to provide an overly scientific or clinical documentation, as it aims to document my own subjective experiences and observations during this test. It is hoped that said observations will provide the Foundation with new insights for both psychological and practical applications. All that is currently known is that it is possible to bring the consciousness, or soul, if you believe that, of a person into the body of another by using a specific anomaly the Foundation has acquired. And apparently this process seems to have been severely traumatizing. Traumatizing enough that several D-Class personnel have committed afterwards. And every single test subject so far was either unable or outright refused to talk about what happened for the short time that their soul was deleted from our reality. So, why on earth would I volunteer for such an experiment? The answer is quite simple. I've been a chain smoker since I was a young man. Well, surprise. All those warnings that smoking causes cancer are true. Who would have guessed? I have terminal lung cancer, and my time is about to come, according to doctors. So, since I've been assigned to this project for quite some time, and my curiosity has always been morbid in nature, I figured I might as well just try to be a useful asset to this program. Let's just hope my mind doesn't end up as some kind of cerebral pudding. The test will begin in 2 days.
Date 2710.
I've just been photographed by the anomaly. Now there's no turning back. I will be restrained for the transfer. Apparently the owner of my new body is a spy of some hostile group of interest who is embedded in the Foundation, and they wanted to prevent him from fleeing once he's inside my body. Not that my broken body would be capable of running anyway. They see it as a kind of prison for him. Convenient. Convenient but cruel, in my honest opinion. I was told to memorize a poem, just like the test subjects before me, as a way of identifying me after the transfer. Standard procedure by now. The poem goes like this. Be not afraid in the face of change. Be courageous, standing like a wall. Though at first things may seem strange, and nothing familiar at all. There's a purpose in the bland and grey, though it may still seem far. You can make it through the day, no matter where you are. I don't recognize this poem. It seems very random. I wonder if one was selected for any specific purpose. Anyways, it's time to begin the test.
Date 3010.
Hello. My name is Dr. Dominic Martin, 56 years old, born in Hamburg. Well, not really. I'm actually 35 years old, born in Dumcat. My body, at least. The transfer of my consciousness has been successful. It has been quite the unpleasant experience. Hence why I have requested anxiolytics for the time being. The transfer itself, well, how do I describe it? At first, there was a mild sense of unease, followed by a headache. Then, time started to slow down as both symptoms gradually became worse. I felt an intense pressure on my eyes and inside my head, accompanied by a strange pulling sensation, as if something inside of my body was pressing against its outside, trying to force its way through. Then, a sudden rip. There was darkness. Well, not actually darkness. It was colorful and black and white and gray and colorless all at the same time. Trying to describe it is like trying to define the color of a mirror. I saw geometry that didn't make sense, like squares with 5 sides or triangles seemingly comprised of 90-degree angles. I was in a place without space or time. I couldn't breathe because neither was there air, nor did I have a body to breathe. I was consciousness and unconsciousness at the same time, existing, vegetating through a reality I could not comprehend. I was in limbo. Time did not seem to exist. I may have been there for a few seconds, or hundreds upon hundreds of years. I do not know. Both felt the same. After a time I cannot define, I entered what felt like an intense fever dream. An array of illogical and random thoughts, words, sentences, and impressions infinitely repeating. I dreamt in a circle that I could not break out of. I don't know if I could even perceive that circle or my situation as a whole. Then began the memories. I lived through them like it was my first time experiencing them, and yet they often felt familiar, like deja vu. I thought I was alive, but my memories were not in exact order. I'd often jump in between them in nonsensical ways. Not all memories were true either. Some contradicted each other. All this causing me to question myself and my sanity. I'd met people I knew were dead, or did not belong in my perceived timeline. These contradictions, however, made it possible for me to realize that none of this was real. At least, I think it wasn't. Having realized that, I focused on the poem I had memorized before. I used it like a mantra to try to hold on to my reality. I'm sure I could have done without it. I mean, the other D-class managed it as well. But I think it helped me deal better with my situation. Maybe it made it all less traumatic, in a sense. From what I've heard, I am dealing with it much better than he does. Thinking about it, I'm wondering even more now if there was a specific reason for the selection of my pool. Entering the new body was an unsettling experience. I started to feel a spinning and pulling sensation. I felt sick. Then, like a curtain, this not reality I was in gave away to our reality. My eyes were open, but I could not yet see. Everything spun around, and it felt like the insides of my body were rearranging themselves. For what felt like days, but were merely seconds, I was in terrible pain. I could feel my brain. It felt like it was burning, melting. I think those symptoms may be very real, as they perfectly match those that killed D7673 in test 7122-18. I'd tasted purple? I heard triangles and squares. The synesthesia took some time to go away. My theory is that those symptoms were my consciousness, or my soul, if you want, adapting to my new body, or vice versa. Probably similar to the transplantation of a new organ. My theory is that unless the brain and body are in a specific state, they may reject the new consciousness in some way, which is probably what led to the known complications of a transfer. It's a wild guess, but maybe surgical precautions like deep brain stimulation and general anesthesia could help with that. I should maybe add that I could not initially remember everything about the transfer. It was like waking up in the morning, where you actually have to think about what you dreamt, because you can't really recall all of it at first. With me, since I knew what was going on, this was probably pretty easy when compared to other test subjects. I only seemed to start remembering when something triggered their memories about it. So, amnestics may also be helpful to minimize both physical and psychological harm.
Following test DOI 712203, the recommendations of Dr. Martin have been tested and were found to be effective. Dr. Martin was subsequently administered mild amnestics at his own request. Since the transfer could now be carried out safely, the Department of Intelligence was given permission by the O5 Council to initiate Operation Soulmate. Operation Soulmate. Operation Soulmate is an intelligence and security operation carried out by the Foundation's Department of Intelligence. Operation Soulmate is aimed at gaining intelligence about enemy groups of interest, as well as the secure permanent imprisonment of key hostile agents. In preparation for Operation Soulmate, field agents of the Foundation are tasked with recruiting subjects fitting the following criteria: paralyzed, preferably from the neck down, living in severe poverty, from a very rural area and/or a third world country, very few or no family members, very few or no friends or similar acquaintances, preferably no terminal illnesses, age between 12 and 55. Ages outside of the specified range need to be approved beforehand. If a fitting subject is found, field agents are to introduce themselves as government officials or as medical staff of various humanitarian aid NGOs, including and offer the subject the participation in an experimental medical procedure to fully cure their disability. If subjects refused, they are to be administered amnestics and released. If subjects agreed, they are taken to Site 717, Jasmine Peninsula, Germany, and prepared for a transfer of consciousness. Any acquaintances of the subject are to be informed a week later that the subject was killed in an accident involving the ambulance vehicle they were transported in and that the body could not be recovered. Preparations for transfer include implantation of a deep brain stimulation implant, memorization of an individual poem, memorization of a telephone number belonging to the Foundation, and limited mental preparation about the procedure itself. Subjects are not to be informed about the existence of the Foundation under any circumstances, to guarantee the integrity of the veil of secrecy. If not yet the case, field agents are then to use SCP-7122 to photograph the target person of interest. For the transfer, subjects are to be placed under general anesthesia inside an interrogation cell. Subjects are told beforehand that it is absolutely integral they find a telephone and call the specified number as soon as possible after waking up. Foundation agents are then to track and locate the phone call and provide instructions to link up with Foundation personnel or, if necessary, dispatch field agents to return them to a nearby site for further treatment. Once the subject is recovered, they are to be administered amnestics and given a cover-up story about their new life. Only once it was certain that the subject itself believes said story, they are to be released from Foundation custody. Documentation about Operation Soulmate can be found below. The following is a list of persons of interest captured during Operation Soulmate, alongside additional basic information. Further information such as intelligence gained or subsequent operations of the DOI have been excluded from this list due to secrecy and irrelevance to the file. Operation Soulmate 1. Subject: Yaroslav Gordov, 22, from Siberia, Russia, both legs amputated due to diabetes. Lived with his father, a Russian army officer, recruited after a doctor's appointment. Person of interest: Louis Marcelo Rouzet, 47, from France, known collaborator of Marshall Carter and Dark Limited. Notable incidents: none. Subject was recovered and amnesticized. Conclusion of operation: operational success. Operation Soulmate 2. Subject: Aditya Biswas, 19, from Bangladesh, paralyzed from the neck down, no family, lived in a disabled person's residence from UNICEF. Person of interest: Vladislav Bortsov, 31, from Russia, recruiter for a Sarkic cult within Russia, now within Foundation custody. Notable incidents: none. Subject was recovered and amnesticized. Conclusion of operation: operational success. Operation Soulmate 3. Subject: Sanun Nugent, 49, from Thailand. Entire family and friend group died in a large fire at a wedding. Failed attempt left him paralyzed from neck down. Recruited straight from hospital. Person of interest: Maria Munoz Pereira, 45, from Argentina. Member of the Serpent's Hand, now within Foundation custody. Notable incidents: none. Subject was recovered and amnesticized. Conclusion of operation: operational success. Operation Soulmate 4. Subject: 12, from Xinjiang, China, separated from her family at a young age, paralyzed from neck down as a result of physical violence, recruited from Uyghur internment camp. Person of interest: mid-tier operative of the Chaos Insurgency, now within Foundation custody. Notable incidents: subject behaved unusual enough to arise suspicion before being recovered. Subject was terminated by a field agent to assure secrecy. Conclusion of operation: limited operational success. Operation Soulmate 5. Subject: 14, from Syria. Family died in IED explosion, which left her paralyzed from the waist down. Recruited from foster home for disabled children. Person of interest: Ahmed Mohammed Al-Hassin, 52, from Iran. higher-ranking ORIA officer now within Foundation custody. Notable incidents. Subject apparently was mentally unstable before the transfer and committed despite precautions. Conclusion of operation. Limited operational success. Operation Soulmate 6. Subject Abu Bakar Wachuku, 35, from Niger, paralyzed from waist down after a car crash that killed his family, recruited from hospital. Person of interest 43, from Canada, priest of the Fifth Church, now within Foundation custody. Notable incidents. Subject behaved unusual enough to arouse suspicion. Subject was detained, interrogated, and killed by members of the Fifth Church before Foundation operatives could intervene. Note, as the subject was not aware about the existence of the Foundation, the information gained by the Fifth Church is most likely very limited. Still, the operation is considered a failure. Conclusion of operation: operational failure. Operation Soulmate 7. Subject redacted for the purpose of operational protection of Foundation operatives. Person of interest: high-ranking member of a Sarkic cult, now within Foundation custody. Notable incidents. Subject recovered without incident. Subject refused amnestics after having learned about the Foundation and offered to remain an informant embedded within the cult. After the necessary precautions and security measures were taken, he was officially reinserted into the cult and has since proven to be a reliable source of intel. Conclusion of operation: great operational success. By order of the Ethics Committee, Operation Soulmate has been shut down due to its inhumane and unethical nature. Any similar operations are prohibited from being conducted until further notice.
Verdict of the Ethics Committee regarding Operation Soulmate. After careful consideration, the Ethics Committee has come to the conclusion that while Operation Soulmate has undoubtedly been a full success for the SCP Foundation when it comes to intelligence on hostile forces, in doing so, it has also committed serious violations of human dignity. Although the Foundation does not currently know whether there is such a thing as a soul, it is safe to say that human consciousness is the closest thing to what one would call a soul. As such, entrapping a person's consciousness with a foreign paralyzed body defies every known concept of human dignity. Furthermore, Dr. Dominic Martin's journal, together with tests 7122-17, 18, DOI 7122-1-3, and Operation Soulmate 5 show that the deletion of metadata and transfer of consciousness are psychologically almost unbearable for the subject and lead to severe trauma, and in some cases, even if the end always justified the means, which in the opinion of the Ethics Committee is not the case here. The use of such methods for advanced interrogation would be highly questionable. The success of the Department of Intelligence does prove it right, which is why Project Boulder may persist. However, continuation of Operation Soulmate and all further operations of this kind are nevertheless prohibited on the basis just mentioned. We secure, we contain, we protect. From the Ethics Committee of the SCP Foundation.
Okay. I think that about does it for today. Thank you for listening, if indeed you still are, and you're all dismissed. Goodbye. I would like to give a special thank you to Big Sip, Zorgaran, Oh Crap Guy, Kignack, The Morrigan, Rowan O'Brien, Braided Peach, Dean Dingus, Dr. Wolf 13, Cupster, Worthy Fire, Zazapan, Irish Wristwatch, Signar, Your Local Foundation Agent, Lost Boy, and James Saba. If you would like a special thank you at the end of each of my videos, and some other cool stuff as well, visit patreon.com/TheVolgun. Thank you.